Welcome to episode 198 of the Necronomicon.com.
On Thursday, the 13th.
James Sabata, Donald Guillory, Bridget D. Brave, and S.A. Bradley are coming to Butcher Cabin Books in Louisville, Kentucky on Thursday, July 13th. Join us for an author reading, Q&As, tickle fests, whatever the hell happens. We don't know. It's going to be a great time. Come on out, buy some books, listen to some great stories, and have a great time with some people who truly love horror. We can't wait to see you at Butcher Cabin Books in Louisville, Kentucky.
So be there.
Whether it was witchery, some modern science, or a demon let loose from hell, I am unable to decide. Williams Bell, from an authenticated history of the Bell Witch.
Who's there?
From 1817 to 1821, an entity calling itself Kate tormented the Bell family of West Tennessee. There is still no widely accepted explanation for this haunting. Coming summer 2024, on the new hit audio drama Afflicted, the Bell Witch returns to haunt a family in 1960s Tennessee, but only if we raise enough money to pay our cast and crew a living wage. Help bring this haunting to life and snag exclusive rewards like limited edition supporter t-shirts, producer credits, and more at afflictedaudio.com/support. But do it quickly. Some perks are limited only to early supporters.
Good evening.
I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And for the second week in a row, Don is not here. I don't know where he is. He went missing. The cops keep asking me questions. They went through my woodshed. And all I want to say right now is that I did not kill my podcast partner.
It's been 14 days since I was last seen at the Necronomicon.com. I faked my own death. And I've been living, well, pretty much in the worst possible place you can imagine, inside of James's mind. What is reality at this moment? What are we living in other than the deep void of nothingness? Yes, and I am alive. I'm not pregnant.
Yet.
And I didn't trick Neil Patrick Harris into keeping me safe. But I am Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of this show. And I can't even come up with a joke to follow up with that one. I'm just going to say, as we kick it over to Michael, I love this movie. And I am not ashamed to admit that I love this movie. There, that's it.
Fantastic. So joining us this week, Michael Stevens is here. Michael, welcome back to the show, man.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me back. I'm a little sick, a little under the weather right now, so sorry if I'm not at my peak. But at the same time, this is a great movie. I'm not ashamed to admit that I love it. It's one of those films where when you watch it, like it's an entertaining film. You watch it, you enjoy it, but there is an aspect to the film that I think, particularly for men, gets a little bit uncomfortable. And we can get into that a bit later, but this is a great film. You watch that movie the entire time, even though there's not a lot happening, scene to scene to scene. It's kind of slow, slaughtered to, just people talking. The tension rises, and when you get the reveal of what's actually going on, it really floors you in ways that are kind of unsettling, and I think for men are important.
I love that. So you two know this, but our listeners do not. I have avoided this movie nonstop all of these years.
I can't believe
because I read the spoilers for another movie and I'm not going to mention it by name, but let's just say there was a train and there was a girl,
girl.
on that train. And I read the spoilers and I hated the spoilers so much that I refused to watch that movie. But somehow in my mind, I thought that was Gone Girl. So I have avoided it this entire time. Finally watched it, absolutely loved it. And I feel for the first time in a really long time that I've legitimately cheated myself out of something I would have really enjoyed for years.
You did.
Yeah, no, this is a great film.
But I will say this, James.
Yes.
You still watched it. It was just an issue of you didn't get around to it. And what I would say for anybody, because Michael said something I used to say, this was before we recorded, which is like, it's like, oh, you never saw it before? I've changed because I used to do that like hard, like not in the sense of judging somebody. It was just utter shock.
Check out our Jaws episode.
Right. But I didn't even do that. My thing was more an issue of like surprised that you never saw it. And so I think around that, like 2-3 years ago when we did that episode, I started changing the way I say it. And so now I say is like, oh my gosh, you got to see it for the first time. Like you got to see it. Like I think about the joy I had as far as watching something for that first time, seeing those twists, seeing the way something was presented, versus I've seen it. I know what I'm waiting for. I know what I'm expecting to happen. And I know what I don't, I know what the bathroom breaks of this movie are. I mean, whatever movie it is, I know what the bathroom breaks are. I know what's a missable scene. Whereas you don't know that when it's your first time. You don't know the jokes that are going to be thrown out, the references, the references to like real world events and pop culture, things like, or just like the different people, the different characters that get included in this overall narrative. When you sit back and you're like, holy shit, there are people I know like this. Or as we were discussing earlier, that idea of which you brought up, Michael, the idea that men watching this, which all three of us, men watching this have a completely different experience than women watching the film or women identifying watching the film. Because if you're a cishet man and you watch this movie and you're in a heterosexual relationship, the partner that you have, you see them differently at that moment, depending on how they react to this film, what they picked out of the film, what they might have laughed at in this movie, what they might have cringed at. And you're completely thinking like, oh shit, my wife, my girlfriend, my partner is going to fucking kill me. or try, fake their own death and then make me go to jail or the gas chamber for their death.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, this is scary. Maybe I should delete some apps on my phone. Maybe I should delete my history. Like those are even that joke, like 10, 15 years ago, that was the joke that continues to keep going through, which is, oh, if anything happens to me, delete my browser history, because you don't want anybody, and especially your partner, finding out what you may have been searching for, because once you're dead, you can't explain what you were looking at. You can't explain, why you were looking up, I don't know. Which this was a fun one to have on my search history. 19th and early 20th century brothels in New Orleans. And then there was one, it was, what are methods of murder that are undetectable? And so I just kept looking. I was like, holy shit, if somebody looks at my browser history, they're going to think I'm a demented, like, serial killer, murderer, whatever, when the reality is I was researching a book.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, as writers, all three of us are writers. You search for some stuff that's just insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
oh yeah.
It's like, if anyone sees my search history, it's like, oh, we need to get a cop. But you're talking about like films you've never seen before. I've never seen The Godfather. Never watched it. Have no interest. I hate mob movies. So like I've never seen that.
Mm-hmm.
But with this movie, I am kind of, I'm glad anyway, James, that you finally came around and started watching this. It's a good film. Um, and I think it plays with the expectations. What Don was talking about with, men watching this, they're looking at what their wives are seeing and what they're doing and, how they're reacting to the film and what's going on in the movie. This film plays with expectations in a way that is, it's pretty masterful.
Oh yeah. So I brought all this up to my wife. She did not watch the movie with me, but she knows what it's about because I told her. And I asked permission to tell this joke before I get eaten alive. My wife can't do this because her ADHD is so bad that there's no way she could keep all of this straight and get away with it. She would be caught almost instantly. So I'm feeling pretty good. But in fairness, I think she'd just kill me and take the blame for it. So I'm still not safe. Anyway, so let's jump in, Mike. Where do you want to go? We can go in order, theme by theme, random chaos, whatever you want. We will follow you, man.
Well, I'm thinking it is the expectations. When you go to a movie like this, and it's a story about a man and a woman, and they're in this relationship, and it's problematic, and then something happens to one of the partners, and maybe we find out later that there's a child involved or a fetus involved. I think as Americans, we're just kind of like programmed to assume that, well, the guy's a dick. What did the guy do? What did he do? He's an asshole. And so when you start the movie out, like the very first lines of the movie are, when I think of my wife, I imagine crushing her skull.
Yep.
And to see what's in her brain.
Yeah, unspooling her brains.
Yeah. So we start with the violence. We start with violence and male violence. That's our first introduction to his character.
Mm-hmm.
And that just plays into the filter of, men are dicks. They're the problem. What's he doing to her?
Right.
And so it kind of lays the groundwork of where we're going in this film.
Yeah, and I think that plays heavily into how the media reports things as well, and the fact that, like you said, it's the very first thing we get from him. That's how it works for everybody watching the news in this, right? The first thing is that guy's probably the one who did it.
No, the media is immediately you're an asshole. What are you doing? You're bad. You're awful. They're at his house. He's a murderer. What did you do to your wife?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the filter.
Well, even the way in which the suspect, or I'll just say, the husband, boyfriend, partner, is immediately seen as a suspect, even if the police aren't saying, there's always this push when there's being interviewed, like, Mr. Smith is not a suspect. He's a person of interest, or Mr. Smith has been cooperating. He's not a subject of investigation. They can say that all they want, but us as viewers or consumers of the news media, social media, whatever, we immediately look at it like, he probably fucking did it. He probably had some woman on the side. Like the oh gosh, what was his name? Drew Watts or something. I forgot his name. But the guy who killed his wife and kid, Chris Watts, the guy who killed his wife and kids in Colorado. People were saying, oh yeah, he started getting into shape, and he was working a lot, or he was always going all these things, right? So people started questioning. In fact, they started questioning, like, what were the signs that guys would have if it came to they were doing something on the side, and then that would rationalize them like killing their family to get away from it. And it was stuff like that. It was, they started wearing different clothes, or they were always tired, or they were working out, or all these things. And also this idea of, I'm sorry, this pursuit of, as we joked about search histories, this pursuit of what they were doing online. Like immediately with this guy, people found out, oh, he had shit, I can't remember which ones, Tinder or Bumble, or he had like a dating account thing. So they're like, oh, well, he was looking for other women. He was doing this. They found out that he actually had a couple of women he was having affairs with, and that his wife found out about it, and she was going to divorce him and take everything. So that was his rationale. At least the people argued that was his rationale for killing his wife and kids. Or in the case of Scott Peterson, he's got a woman he's seeing, which this movie, it mirrored so many aspects of that purposefully.
Yeah.
Where he had a girlfriend. He goes to the vigil, and he was like texting the girlfriend from the vigil and from the search, like, hey, what are you doing later? You want to go out to dinner? And she said in later interviews, like, this guy was literally texting me while he's searching out for, because she apparently didn't know he was married, searching for his wife, who he had killed or allegedly killed, but he's convicted of it. But and just talking about how these guys are sociopaths and they will just hide all this shit, which was great in this film as far as the way they capture it, because even as somebody who has watched this movie countless times, the first hour of the movie, they do such a good job of storytelling and framing a setting. Yes. That I still think, oh fuck, Ben Affleck, he fucking killed her. Nick killed her. Yeah, and then you have to come back out of reality. You're like, I know she's alive. I know she actually planned all this shit, but it's the way that this is presented within our media, whether it's 24-hour or it happens to be the local news. It's the way it's presented that, in many aspects, doesn't just make this a crime, suspense, thriller. It makes it a horror film because you can see how someone's identity can be completely transformed by a lens and by whoever is holding that camera or holding that microphone. Because this is a guy who is a dick, but he's not a murderer. Well, he's an adulterer, but he's not a murderer. He's
oh, sorry.
Oh no, please go.
Well, and that's the thing. We know, like, the movie gives us clues early on that he did not do it. He walks into the house, he's got the cat, worried about the cat. He's being a provider. But he walks in the house and he sees the table upturned and the glass is broken and splattered all over the place. And you see his reaction there. Like, he did not do that. So instantly. You're given that clue. You're given that clue like almost in the first 10 minutes of the movie. And yet you still, for like the first hour, think, oh, well, this guy killed her. And it is, like you said, it's so well done. But yeah, we know he didn't do it. Like, if you're paying attention, he didn't do it. The first 15 or 20 minutes of this movie give you so many clues that it's her, not him. But of course, it's a movie about a man and a woman, and you just assume the guy's a dick, and that's the end of it. And so it just plays with you. I think it's brilliant.
Well, or you just assume that somebody else.
There's also
even if it's not her,
Right. And this is the other thing that just blows my mind, because it became, actually there's a term for it. It's called missing white woman syndrome. And it's referring to, like, the media immediately latches onto that story. That's the only thing that gets covered. Right. And I made note of the way at various parts of the movie in which they refer to Amy. So they refer to her as the inspiration for Amazing Amy. She's a beautiful blonde woman, and she was a hopeful mother. It was all these things about, she sacrificed her career, and she was the best friend to this local lady who has the triplets and all this other stuff. So you've got all these things, and then there's behind the scenes where Margot, Nick's twin sister, is criticizing the way that he has been talking to the police, saying, well, they asked me about her, and and they said, does she have any friends, and what does she do, blah blah blah. And they say, oh, she's complicated, and she says, complicated means bitch. Like, and of course she's biased because she doesn't like Amy, but she's like, this is how you see her, and the conversation that you're having with the police is not going to endear you to being innocent. You've got a missing woman. More accurately, you've got a missing blonde white woman. And just recently, and of course, when we're typing, while we're recording this, there was the resurfacing of the Natalie Holloway story, the young girl the young girl who from Alabama who went to Aruba, and they've never found her. It's assumed that she was murdered, but the story has resurfaced. And the same thing with the Watts family, the same thing with Lacey Peterson, the same thing with, I think, was it last year with Gabby Petito, where it was kind of like this whole idea of like, we need to search for these people. And there would be other people that had been missing that were not getting that attention. So, just the way that it gets framed by the media there and the way that they talk about Amy, it's very clear, like, why they care about her. And it's kind of sick. If you really look at it, it's kind of sick because they're saying like, all these people don't matter. These marginalized folks, these minorities don't matter. Even brunettes don't matter. Brunettes, fuck them. She's a blonde. She's a beautiful blonde woman. We need to find her. And every time, they reference her being pretty. Okay, so ugly people and anybody who's not blonde doesn't matter. And it's sad, but those are the stories. Those are the missing person stories that we typically hear about, or we at least hear about for a longer period of time. And it's just interesting. It is even the issue that she happens to be the inspiration for the Amazing Amy books. She's a missing blonde woman, and it trips me out how many times they point out that she's blonde, she's beautiful. It's almost as if the Amazing Amy stuff is way in the background, which is really cool because by the end of this, she's more famous for being the missing Amy or the found Amy at this point than the inspiration for Amazing Amy, which is a clear point of contention for her, or at least for her identity, when she and Nick are together, because she's saying like, oh, Amazing Amy is an improved version of me because I quit playing the cello when I was 9, and in this book she's a cello prodigy. In this book she had a dog. I was never allowed to have a dog. So you start seeing all these moments where her life is not her own, or at least the life that's presented is not her own because her parents are writing it. And here she is crafting this story about this identity that she now has, being a missing person, that then gets spun out in so many different ways by the media and by social media as well. Because even though social media is present, there's not an over presence of it that's represented in the film like you would kind of see now. You'd have people doing TikToks talking about, Amy missing. Oh, I think I saw her at a truck stop. I personally believe they would have found her a whole lot earlier if you had TikTok around this time.
Well, yeah, in the movie, I mean, you see a lot of scenes of him like grabbing his phone. You don't know exactly who he's calling, but so he's going to his own form of social media.
Mm. Well, you know what? We're talking about him being a dick. And you talk about him grabbing the phone also. So even with the way the story is developing, you imagine, or at least you think, again, seeing this movie a number of times, I fall for it every time I watch the movie. I immediately think, oh, he's calling Amy's phone to see if, she'll pick up, or if her abductors will pick up the phone and, ask for ransom money or something, right? But you never get an answer. It just says, the voicemail box is full. So you don't even hear like, hi, this is Amy. Leave a message after the beep. It's just simply the voicemail box is full. can't leave a message. And then you find out it's his mistress that he's calling. It's his side chick that he's calling. And he admits it for the audience. Like, I've been calling you and I couldn't get through. Your damn mailbox is full. I couldn't reach you. And again, you further see how much of a dick he is, because not only is he not calling his wife, unless, we don't see it, but not only is he not calling his wife's phone, but he's setting up plans with his side chick and then has sex with her in his sister's house on the couch that she's allowing him to sleep on. So he doesn't have, so he has some place to stay, as opposed to his house that's a crime scene, or a hotel where he's not going to get any peace because people are going to find out he's there and harass him.
He's very stressed out. He needs time with his girlfriend.
Look, there are websites that he could have gone to relieve any of that stress.
Oh my. I haven't heard of these websites. What are they like?
You know what? I've heard rumors. I've heard rumors of these things.
What were you going to say, Michael?
There's this one site I've heard of, necronomicon.com. Apparently, it's full of all kinds of really horrible stuff.
Sweet. Those bastards. No.
But I haven't gone there, so.
I don't blame you.
You shouldn't.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about this is the Nancy Grace type character. And I know I'm kind of jumping around by going straight for this, but I think it really fits with what you were just talking about of, the beautiful blonde and all these things. But it's just so representative of how nonstop media is. This fucking 24-hour a day. We have to have breaking news every 15 minutes. We report shit even if we've had no time to double check it. Apologize later kind of mentality, if you apologize at all, Fox News. And I thought this was so incredibly well done, like to the point that when she first comes on, I didn't even realize it was an actress. I thought it was actually like just Nancy Grace in the background happening, because the first time they don't really hone in on it, right? And but I loved everything about this, how media sensationalism like just skews public perception, how we all need an opinion right this second, and I'm totally guilty of this. Anyone who's Facebook friends with me knows this. And I just like, I'm looking at the year that it came out, and I'm looking at today, and I thought it was just amazing how I don't feel like it was quite to that level at that point. Like, it was starting to, like, obviously Nancy Grace was there and that kind of stuff, but compared to right now where everything is this, I don't know. It was just fucking nuts to me. Was it that prevalent then?
It was. I mean, because Nancy Grace, who, for those who don't know, was a disgraced attorney because she hid evidence. So her only option, or I guess the only option she would have had, was being a TV personality with helmet hair. But yeah, it was that bad because, I mean, we all lived in Arizona during the Jodi Arias trial. Nancy Grace was on that shit every single day. Same thing with I believe she covered the Lacey Peterson murder as well, and of course there are a lot of connections between that case and the movie, as far as the way a lot of images are represented or reproduced, because it was the same thing of like talking about, here's this woman who was pregnant with his child and he was out screwing this woman, and he was even out looking for her when he knew that she was, I mean, there was even like Tracy Morgan made a joke about it, or had a bit about it, where he said, "Oh, ladies, you got to be careful of these, of these guys, because there are men out there that they'll talk about they love you, and they'll kill you, and then go out as part of the search party and running around saying, Katie, where are you? Katie, we love you. Katie, are you there? Just this, because it became it almost became a trope of, if you're the husband, the boyfriend, the partner, you're the one who did it. And the best thing that we could do as members of the media is go ahead and hammer that part home. The police can't do it publicly, but we can, and we're going to do it for ratings, because we can have a discussion, a very irresponsible discussion about what took place, to go ahead and frame you in a certain way, in a certain light, because one, you can't defend yourself. And if you come on this show, it's a lose-lose situation. So people like Nancy Grace took advantage of that. Like, people who are the subject of a missing person or a murder case, they're not going to go on Nancy Grace and talk about what they did or what they didn't do, because Nancy Grace's platform is all about, I'm going to talk as much shit about you as possible, whether or not I'm right. I'm going to talk shit about you because that's my brand and that's the way I get viewers. And so even going beyond that, if I am wrong, as you brought up earlier, James, I'll apologize, but the apology is not going to have the same amount of energy as the accusations did. And what people will remember is, oh yeah, that's the dude who was accused of killing his wife. Yeah, it turned out he was innocent. But they are already going to know about what porn sites you went to, what pictures you had in your phone. Like, there's a complete invasion of privacy that's going to take place if you happen to be innocent. It's not something that you can ever recover from. I mean, imagine if you had some weird kink, right? There's no kink shaming on this show, but let's just say you had an obscure kink. People are going to know that. So they're going to know, like, oh yeah, I like to have, I forgot what the hell those fish were. I like to go get pedicures in the places that have the little fish that eat the bacteria off your feet. And I love the way it feels, right? They're going to now call you fish boy or fish toe boy or something like that, to where that's not you are now going to be the subject of all types of ridicule, whether or not you were guilty of what you did, because somebody took the time to make you the focus of their vitriol, their entertainment, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, we had a good amount of that at the time, James. And I can only say that confidently because my mom watched that shit like all the time. And she did not like Nancy Grace, but she still watched the show.
But that's the thing about the film, and what you pointed out, like, we come into this movie with that history of Nancy Grace, CSI, whatever the crime shows are. We assume the man is gone, and the film plays with that expectation. The man's a dick, the man's a jerk, and it just basically throws it at the audience and says, here's a story, man and woman, in a broken relationship, and things go really wrong. She's gone. And we come in with the expectation that, well, clearly it's him, because we've been watching these shows all these years. So I think the way they play with the expectations that we come in, we bring into the movie theater because we're on social media and we're on cable television. It does it pretty masterfully.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's also just the overall irresponsibility involved with it. The true crime genre has increasingly been criticized for ethical violations. There's so many moral debates about it. The mere existence of the genre of true crime is controversial in many cases. There's a lack of common guidelines, no normative marketing framework. But the problem I see is that it's also super fun and it makes a ton of money. And those two things will overshadow these dilemmas every single time. We don't care about the actual people involved. And that's another thing that Gone Girl got so right, because we get that shady feeling of how it's being reported. Then there's these super fun scenes that make the shady feeling feel better.
I talked earlier about this whole idea of, like, there were some really funny moments, or I should say just kind of, oh hell, they're funny. They were funny to me. funny moments in the film because I think about this every time this scene comes up, and it's the part where the detective is asking Nick, like, "Oh, she's a type A personality, you're type B, Oh, well, what is your wife's blood type?" And he's like, I don't know. And he's like, "Oh, this is your wife, but you don't know what her blood type is." And then when he leaves the room, the other cop says, like, should I know what my wife's blood type is? And she just looks at him like, no. But I love how they grill him so much. And I ask myself the same question before the other cop asked that question, where I'm like, oh shit, what the hell is my wife's blood type? Oh my God, what's my daughter's blood type?
Because I don't even know my blood type.
What? And I only know my blood type because of doctor's visits, right? And then when I was, given blood like every other month, and it's O positive, by the way. And I only know that's an important thing because the people at the blood bank were like, "Oh, this is very important because you have type O blood. This is what we need because you can do this, this, this." Otherwise, I wouldn't know. But that just seems like at that moment, the way it's presented, you feel as though you have to be a really bad partner because the way this detective presents this, how do you not know what blood type your wife is? And then you question as an audience member or as a reader, as a viewer, oh shit, I don't know what my partner's blood type is. Something happens. They're going to see it. It almost becomes that personalization of this. If someone were to ask me these questions, I'm probably going to be seeing the same way this guy is. I'm completely absent within the relationship.
Yeah, definitely. I did not ask myself that. I just thought, well, I suck. The end. What were you going to say, Michael?
It was just, I mean, this movie, obviously, it knows who we are as an audience coming in. We're an American audience. We're coming in. We are assuming the guy's awful. The guy's the problem. And the woman's, she's a good thing. And so when you throw that out, well, I don't know her blood type. He doesn't know anything about her. He doesn't know who her friends are, who she hangs out during the day. Cops or the detectives basically like, this is her best friend. You don't know about this? It's like, who? I have no idea who that person is. So that's there. The guy's a douche. He's a dick. He's not the best husband. We understand that. And so it's setting it up. And that's why I think, Don, you said for like the first hour of the film, you get sucked in every time just thinking, my God, he did it. Right. And then it turns on us. And that's why this film is so good. It turns on us. And there are elements of this film. He's a mama's boy.
Oh, clearly. Yeah.
He's a mama's boy. The sister, I can't remember her name, but she's actually Margot. She's like, don't be a mama's boy when you're talking to the press. Don't be a mama's boy. And we see that throughout the film. Even when he gets that call initially to run home to find out she's not there, it's like the door's open, your cat's outside. He comes home. The first thing he does, he picks up the cat. And the cat is important in this film. Shows up in some very specific scenes. So he picks up the cat. He's taking care of this cat. Puts it in the house. What are you doing outside? So he's a mama's boy, and he is devoted to women. He is a slave to women, and that kind of leads to another issue that this film is pointing at. I'm going to throw the word out there. Cuckold.
Mm-hmm.
We would use that term, of course, but if the woman wants this, I'm going to do this. It doesn't matter how uncomfortable it is. It doesn't matter what it takes. In this film, anyway, he's just going to take it.
Right.
I hadn't thought about it that way. I like that a lot. Really fast. Or you can finish your thought that I just interrupted as well.
No,
I want to hear more about the cat in the specific places because I did notice the cat, but I didn't pay that much attention to him. So where were you going with that?
Well, then I didn't take detailed notes, but right at the
It's
end,
all right.
when she comes back, she's in the house. We see her in the kitchen. I think she's like kind of around the stove area, and she still has Doogie Howard's blood on her. The cat's right in front of her, so the cat is a prominent figure. What you make of that, that's up to the individual person, but the cat plays a role. I think it just has to do with the idea that Affleck's character is a protector or sees himself as someone who needs to protect, who needs to defend. Oh, the cat's outside. I need to race home. I need to go get this cat. He needs to defend and perfect and make his house whole. And I think that's where the cat comes in.
Yeah, I was gonna say he even makes a point to at least she refers to his instruction, but the detective even makes reference to how he had told her, like, "Oh, while they're at the house, please feed the cat for him."
Mhm.
Yeah,
because he can't do it. They're investigating the house, which I also thought was weird. Like they didn't have you take the cat. You're gonna leave the cat in an active crime scene. But again, storytelling, it makes sense. Hey, can you take care of the cat? Can you feed the cat if you're going to be in the house? But I yeah, there were a couple of because he even has not a conversation with the cat, but he, like we all do with our pets, we talk to him, and he picks up the cat at one point and says something to the extent of you know something, or what do you know, almost out of desperate, like we would all talk to our pets anyway, that thing of like, I don't have anybody else I can talk to about this, like almost like if you can talk, now's the time to do it. Tell me what happened here.
I thought it was weird that he had to come home for the cat. Like, wouldn't your first instinct be, well, she's home, she can take care of the cat? Like, I don't know. That seemed odd to me.
Well, no, he was being sent on a treasure hunt, though. So it seems as though, not that they have a history of this, but it seems as though from that conversation that they had, hey, go somewhere and think about our marriage, right? He comes back home, or eventually comes back home. So it may have been, in his mind, like, she told me to go think. She probably went somewhere else to think as well. So odds are she's probably not in the house. I mean, that's the only thing I could come up with, I could think of with that, especially when he has that conversation with his sister later saying, she told me to go somewhere and think about it, and she knew where I was going to go. But it also indicates to you he has an understanding of who she is, despite not knowing her blood type. But he has an understanding of who she is, that she may have gone somewhere to like go think, or go. She might have gone for a drive or something like that. Or she might have been anticipating, hey, he wants to get a divorce. I'm not going to be here when he comes home. Like, I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to be around him.
yeah.
I think that she would have a way stronger case if she would have known to wait for the divorce papers. Imagine if she could place that with the diary. And like holy shit. I think that this just wraps up faster and he's fried. I think that
But knowing
yeah, go ahead.
his ability to know her is a huge, because at the end you get to that point, spoilers, where they're together, they're staying together, they're gonna have this child, and it's a fucked up ending. But he's like, I'm lying to you. Like, I didn't say that because I meant it. And she's like, yeah, you said what I wanted to hear, but you knew what I wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important point. Like, he knows her. He understands her. He maybe doesn't understand who her friends are, but he knows her. And that's a huge element in her motivation in this movie. Because, at some point she's willing to basically just was in his life.
Oh yeah, she was going to leave him out to hang
Oh yeah,
or fly. I mean, really.
You're going to prison. You're in Missouri, so you're going to get the death penalty. You're going to die. But you know me, so okay, we can work this out.
Well, even the way that she gets robbed, and then she goes after Neil Patrick Harris's character, right? Desi, is that his name?
Desi, yeah.
And like just how quickly she can totally realign what she's doing, who she's using, how to abuse them and get what she wants. Like she course corrected on a massive fucking level. And then she sees her husband do this one thing and course corrects again in a way that she hadn't originally planned. And I thought that was just fucking fascinating.
Yeah. And when we think about it, this film, we were talking earlier about expectations and how it kind of knows how we're coming into this film. You can't escape the fact that it's fucking Doogie Howser. Like, it's Doogie Howser, and she slaughters his ass. Now, he's a prick in this movie, but even as he's being a prick, as an audience member, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you're like, it's Doogie Howser, man. And then she cuts his throat. It's so quick. It's so sudden. The blood's pouring everywhere. And then she wears the blood for like the next 20 minutes. It's a pretty good punch in the face, I guess you could say, because you don't expect that. So I do think one of the things, I said it earlier, one of the things this movie does so well is play with our expectations. What we think, what we feel when we walk into the theater, what we're perceiving. And it's just like, yeah, we're going to take what you believe and we're just going to invert it.
Right.
I just think it's crazy that for somebody who is so meticulous in everything she did, she doesn't know him well enough. Like she's legitimately surprised and emotionally changed when he goes on TV and does what he does with convincing her. And for all the work she put in, she proves that she doesn't know him as well as he knows her.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. I don't know. I found that fascinating. Don, you had mentioned that you've seen this like 200,000 times and you only noticed him do the two-finger chin thing this time around while he's on the news.
Well, it was, like I said, I've unapologetically, this is one of my favorite crime thriller suspense films. It might even be my favorite David Fincher movie. Which again is saying a lot, because I mean, you got Zodiac, you got all of his music videos that he did back in the 80s and the 90s. But no, it was the thing of, there are a lot of movies that you sometimes miss things the first time you see it, not the intentional things, because they build that up of this whole the two fingers on his chin is his way of saying, I'm not lying, I'm telling you the truth, right? But he does it so smoothly. I was paying more attention to what he's saying. And then because I'd watched it so many times, I wasn't always looking at the screen during this part. So I'm looking for all the social cues that he had been making. And when he does this whole, I miss you, I love you so much, please come home. You're the best thing that I can't remember this line that he gives, but you're the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and I love you. And at that moment, like, he sweeps his hand across his chin and then puts those two fingers for like half a second on his chin. So I never really paid enough attention to it at that moment, because I was paying more attention to his words, because he said, I think when he's talking to his sisters, like, I'm going to say what she needs to hear, or I know what Amy needs to hear from me. So I was concentrating more on the words, especially that whole part about like, I'm prepared to go to the woodshed for you, as opposed to that. And I thought that was such a great touch, no pun intended, when you go back and watch this, because he does it so many times to comfort her, to let her know, like, I'm not lying to you. I'm telling you the truth. But the fact that he does that, right? And that's the time he's lying to her. The fact that he puts those fingers there, you're the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and I love you. Please come home, with the fingers. And she sees that, and it's like, oh my God, I need to go. I'm so confused now. I need to go back. And like you said, James, that's when she starts hatching that plan of Michael, that idea of she's now got to course correct, because let's be honest, Desi's more than infatuated with her. Like, this guy has been obsessed with her for over 20 years. And now she's shown up on his doorstep, and kind of how Nick goes is that guy who needs to protect something. Desi is now that guy's like, she came to me. I'm her savior. This is great. But then you also see these horrible parts, because you could see him as a savior figure, right? You could see him as a sympathetic character of, like, he was sincerely trying to help her. She screwed him over, killed him, and used him as a way to get back to normalcy, or at least get out of the situation that she had put herself in, or she had crafted for herself. But that creepy moment where he's like, I've been patient. Mm-hmm. I've waited. But I won't force myself on you. She's your fucking captive, dude. There is no consent.
What a thing. I say that to every woman I've ever met. That's for sure. I won't force myself on you. That's what women want to hear. Immediately.
Can you sign this little notice here? But when you're thinking about, you're talking about things that are like subtle, it's hidden. This movie, the first 15 to 20 minutes of this movie, they put in so many signs and subtle hints that set up the fact that it's a game.
Right.
So we start off, there's Mastermind. I've never played that game, but I'm assuming it involves strategy. You get the game of life. Mm-hmm. So there's wife, husband, children, all that sort of stuff. Sets up the game. There is a box at one scene when he's in the house. You know, it's like a, I don't know, coffee table or nightstand. Mm-hmm. And there's a box at the bottom. It's upside down. It's white. And it has a name on it. You guys know the name?
No.
I do not.
I can't remember which one it is. But I remember when he did.
It's one of those things where they're throwing it at you. It's such a subtle thing. You'd probably pick it up. It's Pure Nessie, who is someone no one would ever know. But he's, he was like a Renaissance person from Italy, and mm-hmm. he would do, topography. He'd work on, arranging text and everything. But he was also an architect, and so he worked primarily in restoration, taking things that were broken down and messed up and restoring them. And even though it's very small, it's very subtle, it's put in there in a way that most people would not pick up. You get this little symbol that, hey, this is about restoration. We have this thing that's broken. We're going to fix it. And which is what the whole movie is about.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, when you brought up the games, I'd completely forgotten about this line, because it's almost a throwaway line, because it's the conversation between Nick and Margot when they're playing life. He says, "Life, what's the point?" And as a viewer, you have fun with that, because on your first viewing, you're thinking like, okay, it's a game. It's a shitty game. It's a game that I shouldn't say it's a shitty game. It's a game where it's kind of like you kind of get tired of playing it really quickly, right? So on your first viewing, you're looking at it like, oh yeah, of course. I hate playing the game life. Then you got to put the little peg people in the car. It's a pain in the ass to play that game. But then you realize after you watch the movie, and if you come back to that scene, he's actually talking about life itself. Like, what's the fucking point? Because he's miserable. He's a miserable married man. And you see these ways that he tries to cope with, like he's drinking in the morning. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but his sister even says like, "Oh, what do you want?" In a I forgot, it's bourbon or whatever it was, and she makes a joke or kind of mocks him for wanting something like that early in the day,
Well,
or relatively early in the day.
If you look at the film, the moment the relationship splits, where she is no longer like certain that this is a good thing, she comes home, he's there in the middle of the day, and we know he's a teacher, maybe a writer or something, but we never see him working. She comes home, he's on the couch, I think in a robe or something like that, and he's playing video games.
Right.
He's playing a game. And so that's the first moment she's like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you being a real man? Why aren't you doing something meaningful? And that's the moment, at least in terms of, the course of the film, where we see her detach herself from her relationship, her emotional attachment to her husband. This guy is just a clown. He's just a child. He's just sitting there on the couch playing video games. What am I doing with this man? And you get that sense that in that scene, she's like, okay, so I need to get out of here. How am I going to get out?
With that, there are also parts that I question. I mean, obviously, there are parts of the story that are from Amy's perspective, right? Especially when they're going through the diary and there's that question like, is this true? Yes. Is this true? Yes. Is this true? I don't know. But because he's already established that other stuff in the diary, as Tyler Perry, the attorney, says, hey, you're not a handwriting expert. Like, don't answer these questions. The fact that he's now established that whatever's in that book is true, or at least should be believed. And again, when you go back and watch the film, now you question, oh shit, those parts where Amy's narrating, are those true? Like, was he really sitting on the couch, playing Call of Duty, bought a laptop that, hadn't been opened, and his response is, it's for laptopping. Which again is a funny line, is a funny response to somebody who's frustrated with you. And when you can't tell that they're frustrated with you, because I'm here playing this game because I'm stressed out, because I say the same thing to my wife when, hey, I'm going to go upstairs and kill some people. I'm going to go upstairs and go shoot some stuff. Right. So she knows, it's like, oh, he's got something he's thinking about or contemplating, because everybody has their process, right? So Nick may be looking at this as, hey, I have an idea that I'm stuck on. I need to do some mindless activity or do something that's not what I'm concentrating on to figure out what I need to do. And the outside observer sees that as, you're fucking lazy. What do you do? You're sitting on the couch, you're doing this, you're doing that. So when I go back and look at scenes like that where she's narrating, I look at it as, is this reality, or is this her skewed perspective and her bias that's coming through and making me as a viewer see her as more sympathetic and him as, which he's there, or as Tanner Bolt says, because I love this quote. You two are the most fucked up people I've ever known, and I specialize in fucked up. So is it an issue of they're both fucked up people, and now we're seeing her as less fucked up because her narration shows him as lazy, inattentive, unromantic. Even when they're having the way that she talked about them having sex, he's like, he had sex with me, or he had sex. Shit, I forgot the exact way she words it, but it basically says
he uses
does it to me. Uses her. Yeah. The idea that they're not having sex, he's having sex, but using her body. So basically using her body to masturbate is one of the other comparisons I saw somebody give before. the idea that even when it comes to sex, it's not about lovemaking, it's not about intimacy, it's about he needs to pop off a little bit. And then he'll go about his day, because even the way they capture it in that moment is kind of like, oh, he's getting his, and then, he reaches climax, and then he, pulls his pants back up, walks away. It's like, all right, cleared my head. Goodbye. I'll talk to you later, honey. And you see how she's frustrated with that in comparison to that romantic honeymoon period of the relationship where, they're having sex and they're enjoying it. And it's good. And it's so good that they should be having sex on 2,000 thread count sheets, that type of stuff. Like, so going back, you look at it and like, she's romanticizing that period that they were starting off in their lives. And then once the recession hits, he loses his job, she loses her job. The parents want to take the trust fund away to use for their expenses. You see how there's that split in that perspective where it's all doom and gloom on her end, as opposed to, we were just two people in love. We completely got each other. We were having amazing sex. Everything was wonderful. Now I've got to move to Missouri.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Why are they married? They are married because they're at a party, celebrating Amazing Amy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, this book, it's, hey, Amy's this, Amy that, and it's better than my daughter. And,
right.
Affleck's character is sitting there thinking, well, she feels really bad. She's like being diminished by her mom. So I'm going to propose to her. We're going to get married as a way, because I think that book and that particular scene is, Amy gets married. Amazing Amy gets married or something like that. Mm-hmm. So he's like, oh, well, this time you're going to be married too. You're going to be just as amazing as Amazing Amy. But why are they in Missouri? They're in Missouri because Ben Affleck is a mama's boy. His mom's sick.
Mm-hmm.
He goes back there to be with her, to live with her, to take care of her. She dies, we don't know exactly the timeline, but she dies fairly quickly. But if you take those two things away, if you take the parents out of this situation, these are two people who have no reason to be together, two people who would not be together. They wouldn't be in Missouri, and she doesn't like being in Missouri, so she's pissed off about that. They probably wouldn't be married because the only reason he proposed to her is because he felt bad that his mom was shitting on her. So you take the parents out of this, we don't have Gone Girl. We have never met.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, she might have accused him of rape or something. It's hard to know.
I mean, she definitely did have her history.
Yeah, but I do think that scene is super important, and I think it goes back to his need to save her all the time, right? Like he needs to be the protector, because I think that's his false equivalency of what a man would be, right?
Right.
And so when you have this mama's boy who doesn't know how to do anything and who isn't making life work the way he wants, the things that he thinks he can control are saving her or helping her. And he doesn't do it in ways that would actually help somebody, like doing the dishes or the laundry. It's always these grand, crazy ass gestures like this proposal where he sits down and interrupts everybody, makes it all about him, right? But that's what she likes. She wants that show. She wants the fireworks of look at this amazing thing. So these two toxic people are incredibly well made for each other while being absolutely detrimental to one another as well.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you guys make of the relationship he has with his dad?
I think it makes sense. And I mean, as far as like the idea of the dad's history is, he cheated on the mom, they got divorced. And he even Nick had to make up those stories about who his dad was. Like, he's a secret agent. He's Mr. Brown. He's a spy. but I understand him not visiting because that gets brought up, during the Ellen whatever, but the Nancy Grace show, or where his father is in assisted living and he's only visiting one time a year. I'm like,
I love
not
that.
everybody has a healthy relationship with their family. But even the protection part, like, he's in the police station, right? His dad had wandered off from the assisted living facility, and obviously, I mean, they play it as he has dementia. He has some needs, he has some psychological needs or concerns. But he goes into that room, he sees his dad, and he's like, "Oh, this is my father." And his dad is aggressive, he's confused, he's cursing, and he doesn't even walk him up to the assisted living place. He just kind of like gets out of the car with him. He's like, "All right, thanks, guys." And he gets back in his car to go home. So I think it makes sense, because I don't think with that attachment to his mother, as you said, Michael, I think he sees his father as like a major betrayal, but it's also the idea of he's become his father.
Okay.
To go with the sister's comment, he's become his father, and that's a guy like that. That is their fear, and the fact that his father being around would just continue to remind him that he is the man that or at least I'm assuming, he is the man that he did not want to be, which is he became his father.
Okay, so I guess, yeah, that makes a little sense, because when I'm watching this, I sit there and I'm like, why are you even bringing this into the movie? Like, it plays no role as far as the plot goes.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of, maybe character development and everything, I think what you said makes a little sense. But that was the one thing when I was watching this, is like, why are we getting this dad if he has nothing to do? Except, he's going to bitch for a few minutes. His son's going to be like, eh. That was just one of the things, that and the cat, they just stood out as, this is meant to be really important clues to something, but I wasn't sure about it.
Mm-hmm.
See, okay, so here's my take on it. And I'm glad you just brought the cat up as well, because I was going to talk about these two with one another. A cat is way easier and way less effort than a dad with dementia or whatever he has, right?
Yeah.
And Nick is always, he's, like I said, he's making these grandiose gestures all the time, but he doesn't put actual work into anything. And so taking care of his dad, being there for his dad, there's no upside for Nick. There's only putting in work, and it's never going to change. And then everything that you guys just said about, or Don just said about, his own fears with it. So, like, to me, this is where Nick is actually not even a bad person, but just not a great person, right? And then the cat, his whole thing, like, make sure you're taking care of the cat, make sure you're feeding the cat, that whole thing is fascinating to me next to the father, because he doesn't say shit to these guys helping with his dad. He doesn't help out there. He literally turns his fucking back and leaves. And it's not, how can I help? It's not, you guys are amazing, thank you so much. Like, he kind of throws out a little nod to them, but not, he doesn't mean it.
Yeah.
And so to me, dad was total characterization, but then I love how the media exploits the fuck out of it, because we're watching this knowing dad has no real impact on his life. He's done with dad. He doesn't give a fuck. But the media, like you guys said, launches into, he only visits here and there, and uses it to demonize him.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how real that is. But I think that this kind of stuff says a lot about his character and about the person that she's looking for. Again, she's nuts. I'm not on her side on this, but like she's looking for these big gestures, and that's what he gives her. And I find that fascinating, because he won't do it where it actually matters.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, that moment is at the very end where she's watching him on the news and he's, he's saying the line, I can't remember the words, but it's basically, I want my wife back. I just care about her. And she's watching that and you see her, I think she's eating like a cup of yogurt or ice cream or something like that. So she's, eating yogurt, she's watching this, and you see instantly, as soon as he plays the part, as soon as he says what she wants to hear, she changes, and then pretty much immediately kills Doogie Howser. The idea that it's all about narrative, it's all about how you portray people. That the dad's not there, the mom's not there. You remove them all the way. It's just them and him, or her and him. Why are these two people together? She's in it because she's looking for a particular, I guess you would say, she's looking for a puzzle piece, something that's going to fit perfectly. And he hasn't been that his entire life, their entire relationship, maybe early on before they got married. But he says that online, on the interview. She sees that, she's eating the yogurt, and she realizes, oh, he's learned. He's learned I can come back.
Mm-hmm.
And he, for his part, he understands he's learned. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's not like playing the game. He's like, she's looking to hear a certain thing. She wants to see a certain thing. And that'll bring her back. And the lawyer, Tyler Perry, I can't remember his name. He's basically like, the only thing that's going to get you out of here is if you can find your wife. If your wife is alive, that's the only thing that's going to save you. So he knows, I have to get her out. I have to like produce a body.
Right.
And so he does what he does. He does what he can to bring her out, and it works.
Just think about the ego and the narcissism. I mean, with both of them, but the idea of like, yes, I'm going to give up on my, the ridiculous planning that she makes. Right. You even get a glimpse of it with her calendar, because even the calendar states like what she is going to do on specific days. Like, oh, I'm going to call and give the tip. Oh, I'm going to check this on the news. I'm going to do this. And to the ultimate point which I don't believe for one bit, the ultimate ending for her is, I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah, that was weird.
It doesn't make sense because of all her preparation, right? She's got thousands of dollars in cash. You're going to kill yourself in a month, or maybe 2 months, or 3 months, because it's on the 5th of each month, that's each subsequent month, as to when she is going to, put rocks in her pocket and jump into the river, right? I don't think that she was fully going to do, as far as like killing herself. But I do love the fact that she's planned this out so well. Like she's taken urine from her pregnant neighbor, given her all this lemonade, became good friends with her, made up the lie about her being pregnant. So they would have something to talk about, or something additional to talk about. And then, hey, I'm going to, drain the toilet so that when she goes in there, she's going to think she's going to pee, but then she's going to think there's a problem with the toilet. And I'll tell her, oh, don't worry about it, I'll clean it up. But then you take the urine out to use for a potential pregnancy test. You're doing all this to set this up to get that full sympathy, because I can't remember who said it, but this idea that America loves pregnant women, because it's kind of like what we've talked about before, James, with dogs and films. The idea, and I'm not making comparison in that sense, just the idea of the innocence behind it. So horror films, typical rule is you don't kill the dog, right? Unless it's Cujo or something like that. And the same thing with pregnant women, whether we're talking about in a film or whether we're talking about on the news, the idea that a pregnant woman is the most innocent, vulnerable victim you can imagine. It doesn't even matter. Like if it turns out that this was like a mafia boss slash El Chapo type person, it's still one of those things that like she's gonna be a mother. Good for her. But the fact that they've already drawn us in with, or drawn in the audience within the film, in that community within the film, that this is a blonde woman, she's beautiful, and now she's pregnant. So now we're even more invested and more worried about her well-being, her safety, which again, it's great preparation on her part in getting, the urine that she needed and doing all the research on crime and murders and things like that. And then knowing exactly how the press, the media, the public was going to play this. You are going to have a sympathetic figure that everybody is focused in on. She is not just outshined Nick as far as like making him the subject of doing something to her, but now she's also outshined Amazing Amy. So nobody gives a shit about Amazing Amy. People now care about Amy
amazing.
Dunn.
Well, that's the thing. You get to the end of this film, and I mean, you can't avoid talking about the ending. He stays. He okay. Yeah, I'm going to stay with her, and he stays with her because, as Don was saying, she has a baby. She's a pregnant woman. This is my child, and she's pregnant, and he is going to take care of that child just like he took care of the cat, just like he tried to take care of his wife. So he feels that obligation. And I don't know, it's just the ending. I think when you first watch this film, you just walk out of it going like, holy shit. Like, she just basically murdered that dude. And he's like, yeah, well, we're going to stay together. But ultimately, the reason they're staying together, because he actually says to her at one point in time, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to divorce you. But he stays because she's pregnant.
Well, and she even points out, like,
literally
you
talk
leave
about
me,
that.
they're going to attack you. They're going to be all over you. They're going to eat you alive.
But even earlier, like, he says that they can't be those couples that stays together for a kid. And then he fucking does it. And this ending pisses me the fuck off.
Well, Michael, you brought this, and this may address you as well, James. But Amy at one point says, Nick took my pride, my dignity, my hope, and my money. He took from me until I no longer existed. That's murder. So again, with all this planning, all this prepping, and all this readjusting of her plans, she has now killed him. And I have my doubts because I love Margot. Margot's one of my favorite characters, and actually probably my favorite character.
No, she's amazing.
Her and Tanner, Tyler Perry's character.
Yeah, Tyler Perry's character, definitely.
And I just
Bolt
look
is
at it
awesome.
as like, this can't be the real reason why he does it. He can't be staying or deciding not to leave because she's pregnant. He has to actually want to be there. And that's my theory, is that he actually wanted to stay with her. To go back what you were saying, Michael, the whole idea of being that protector, being that savior, that whole idea of like, I'm not going to have she even says like, well, I don't have to teach your kid to hate you because they'll do that all on their own. And the idea of maybe he doesn't want his child to be raised in the same type of situation, a broken home or a split up home, like he and his sister were with their father and their mother. Maybe he does see that he can make the best of this. Maybe he knows her so well, but maybe it could be, kind of what Tanner says earlier. It's an issue of like, you're two fucked up people and you deserve each other. I mean, that could just be what it is. Like, you guys actually do love each other in a sick fucking way, but you love each other.
Well,
I don't want a child living here.
Well, I mean, if you go and you just look at the relationship, obviously it's a broken, it's toxic.
Mm-hmm.
We would all describe it as toxic. But he's in it for a particular reason. And it does come back to what I was saying earlier. You know, he's a bit of a mama's boy, and he wants to protect. He's going to take care of the cat. He's going to take care of the house. And fuck dad. Dad can fuck off. But we're going to take care of the women and animals. We're going to protect that. And yeah, when you get to the end of this movie, it really is. I don't know that it's love, but there is a kind of love that you experience with some people if you've been in a toxic relationship where, okay, it's a bad relationship, but you're still like, I have an obligation to fix.
Right.
And that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier when I pointed out, you know, the name of that box that was turned upside down of, you know, the archaeologist, or not the architect, Piranesi, to restore. You've got to restore this stuff. You got to fix it. You got to go into something that's broken and fix it. And to me, that's the theme of this movie. And I think in some ways, both characters, for better or worse, are trying to do that. We're in this horrible situation. It's really broken. We're going to just destroy each other, or we can restore. And in the end, they both decide, as awful as it frickin' is, we're going to restore this. We have no choice. There's a kid.
Right.
I don't buy it. I think they're gonna fuck this kid up really, really badly. And also, I think Nick's gonna get his fucking neck slit at some point. And you know what? I don't care. Nick fucking deserves it. Fuck Nick. When like, this is every guy. We've all been here where every one of your friends is like, dude, she's crazy. And you're like, no, man, she's sucking my dick. It's fine. And Nick needs to go. He's already proven that hotter women will hook up with him. He has somebody who seems to care about him, but I don't think it's going to last. You know, I mean, she turns on him, but other than that, like, I feel like this ending would make more sense to me if her parents came to him and burned the prenup, or like offered him something like that would make more sense to me. That would be more satisfying. Like he's putting up with this for a reason, because I don't buy that he loves her. And I don't know why the fuck he's there.
Well,
I'm going to say this. This is my selfish theory as far as if I were in the same position. You got a movie deal coming. You got a book deal. You have TV. You have all the stuff that's going to be coming up. So if you are going to be this writer, like he plans to be, your ulterior motive is take advantage of all the press that's coming your way, this redemption story of how because they're going to meet with, Ellen, what the hell was her last name? But the Nancy Grace character, because that's one of the things that comes up at the end of the film is she's at the house to talk to them. Ellen Abbott. She's there at the house to talk to them and do an interview, right? This is not something where the press is going to disappear. It's going to be, we're going on the Today Show or Good Morning America or whatever else, right? Because now everybody thinks they know your story. Now we're going to be talking about these things. The parents are going to capitalize on it. They're going to have some new amazing Amy bullshit. You're going to have all these movies these TV movies and probably feature movies that would be based off of this. Then the kid, when the kid gets born, there's going to be another story about like, oh, the child, you know, whatever. The missing Amy.
Those are all reasons to turn on her, though, because if you point out the truth, she goes to jail, and you keep all the book deals and movie deals and everything else, and you don't have to put up with this whiny ass kid that's half her DNA.
But here's the thing. You still have to prove it. It's just even the detective. She was like, I know that she did something. Even Tanner, they're like, we know, we just can't prove anything. And they even ask, I think Margot might have asked the question about like, well, why don't you wear a wire? And she's like, she fucking had me stripped naked. She's not going to admit to this stuff. Not only that, as meticulous as she was with her planning, her initial planning, she's not going to make the mistake of admitting what she did at all. I would see this as, I don't see there's an escape or there's an out for him that would be comfortable, you know, because if he leaves, then all the press is, like she said, all the press is going to be after him. All the people in their small Missouri town are going to be after him. They're going to completely hound him for leaving this woman who had gone through a traumatic situation, because she wasn't just the victim. She was, as I wrote down, she's the perfect victim. She's the perfect victim. She's an attractive, white, blonde woman, pregnant, right? She's being cheated on. So there's nothing that she did wrong, at least for the media and for the public. There's nothing that she did wrong. So the idea that things didn't work out, people would immediately pull the whole, she was a fucking captive, dude. She survived to come back to you, and you're going to leave her. So I think for him, it's also giving into this.
Absolutely leave.
Oh, yeah.
God damn you.
I'm not sticking
I'd
around to
still
get my
be there.
dick cut off and jammed down my throat.
I'm the dumbass. I'm Ben Affleck. I'm the dumbass who'd be like, all right, let's do this. But interesting thing, you're talking about, she's the perfect, victim. White woman, blonde hair, beautiful. And you mentioned, the detective, the female detective. What do you make about her? Because in this movie, she's asking questions. Obviously, she's doing her job, but she's giving Ben Affleck's character far more rope than we would typically see. She's like, no. Like, she wants to arrest him, but she holds back. I think
she was doing it to see if he was going to slip up, right? So it's an issue of they don't have anything, because she even expresses to the other detective or other police officers, like, you know how hard it is to get a murder when there's a murder conviction or murder arrest if there's no body. So it's an issue of, I'm gonna buddy up to him, because even Tanner Bolt, when he shows up, like, why the fuck are you talking to them? Like, don't answer this question. Don't talk about this. Where he's dumb enough to where it's not until they have something. And I can't remember, it was like the Punch and Judy Club or something else, but he basically says, like, I'm not talking to you until I have a lawyer. I'm never saying another word to you.
Yeah.
When she was taking advantage, and I don't mean that in a negative way, she was taking advantage of the fact that he was going to be open and honest with her, or open with her, to where if he had done it, he's going to slip up. If he didn't do it, he's going to lead her in the right direction to find the person. And that's why, like, she even gets pissed off. She's like, I've been more than fair with you. And, that whole, like, disappointed mother, like, when you bring up mothers, the whole disappointed mother presentation that she has, she's like, I've been more than fair with you, Nick. And yeah. Now you got all this shit in this garage that you've been hiding from me. Interesting. Let me go arrest your sister while we're at it. This is her house. Fuck it. Let's take her in.
I mean, I think for me, it really comes down to what I was saying right at the start: expectations. When you walk into this movie, what you think is going to happen, and in the end, when you leave, how you feel about it. And I tend to compare this film. I know you like to save, double feature kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's fine. You can do it now. That's great. But continue.
I think it's impossible to not think about something like Invisible Man, not the original or the one with Chevy Chase or the one with Kevin Bacon, but the recent one.
Yeah.
You watch that movie, and you're not an actual human being if you can just watch that and not physically be disturbed. It's upsetting. You get outraged. And it's all about, gaslighting and abuse and, one partner just being a bastard to the other in ways that are pretty horrific. And obviously it's got some sci-fi elements to it, so it's not exactly the same. But I think if you compare that movie to this movie, when you watch Gone Girl, it's kind of the same story. You have a situation where you have two partners. One of them is really manipulative. One of them really sort of crosses the line when it comes to how you treat your partner, and in the end the relationship's over, or should be over, but there's a baby involved. And so they're very similar. But when I watch Invisible Man, I lose my fucking mind. Like, I watch that movie, like, it's physically uncomfortable. I watch Gone Girl. I just think it's a really good movie, a really brilliant script, one of the more brilliant scripts of the last 10, 15 years. There's so many things about it that I could point out. We could be here for days, but we're not going to do that. It comes down to that issue is like, when you talk about expectations, when the woman is the victim, how we respond, and how differently we respond when the man is the victim.
Mm.
In this case, the man's the victim. I mean, they're both assholes, but she's the monster. But I think that's just something to think about. That's one of these things. When I think I mentioned when we were talking about doing this movie, I think I mentioned Invisible Man, and it is because these two films sort of create the same situation, almost the exact same story. I mean, plot-wise, they're different, but it reverses the gender. Mm-hmm. And we come into a film, we're expecting a certain thing, and how we react to a film, if it's a man or a woman, is very different. And so that was one of the things I really took out of this film. Like, I kind of feel bad because I'm like, fuck the dude. Dude's a dick. Dude's always the dick. And then within the context of this movie anyway, it's her. And I'm not used to seeing that from Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, even when you compare this with real life cases, the husband, boyfriend, partner, whoever is always assumed to be the assailant, right? And if it's the opposite, let's just say it's the husband, brother, father, whoever missing, the wife, the spouse, partner, girlfriend, they're not the prime suspect as far as the way that we perceive it. As far as the public, we don't look at it that way.
Yeah, and I think that's, for me, that's one of the things about this movie that's so masterful. It's just it knows who we are as an audience, and it plays with our expectations. We come in expecting one thing. The guy's an awful person. Clearly, the woman is, the hero of this story, and it just completely inverts it. And you walk out of the theater like, I don't even know what to make of that. And they're still together. So,
mm-hmm.
And he deserves it when he dies.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, it's clearly gonna be like in 2 or 3 months. It's before the kid is born, right? She kills him.
They should just, because there's no kid, so the kid can't be born. They should just release a short film called Gone Boy, and he just dies 35 seconds into it. And then it's just a screen that says, I fucking told you.
Yeah,
it's
Margot.
It's just him rubbing his 2 fingers down his chin, and then boom, dead.
That would actually be great. Margot would just walk in and be like, you stupid son of a bitch. And that would be the whole short film.
You never paid your bar tab. Maybe if you had a job and weren't at home playing video games all goddamn day.
Ridiculous. All right. So I suppose that'll bring us to movie recs. And I know you've already done one, Michael. Do you have others that you want to throw out?
I actually have quite a few. I'm going to sort of steal Don's mojo here. I know you're sitting back there with like 100. But I think
you can tell who actually listens to the show. I love it.
Presumed Innocent is an obvious choice. Kind of the same story, except, I think there's the whole, Michael Douglas triple feature with Fatal Attraction, Basic Instinct, War of the Roses. I think War of the Roses in particular, because it's clear they're playing a game in there. And in this movie, anyway, it becomes clear at some point that they both know they're playing a game. When you reach the end, there's that scene where Affleck is in the back of the car, and he just says, come get me, Amy. Or, come at me, or when I can't remember the exact words, but he's basically, we're coming to the end of the movie, and he's like, all right, I just fed you that line in the press. I gave you what you needed. Come get me. And so they're playing a game. So War of the Roses, there's a movie, I don't know how many people actually know this movie, but it stars Kevin Kline and Tracy Ullman. It's called I Love You to Death. And basically, it's a couple, and the wife is disgusted with the man. She's trying to kill him. She's poisoning him. At one point, she shoots him in the head, and he lives. And they stay together. So I think that's a good movie to watch alongside of this. And, of course, the one I mentioned already, Invisible Man. I think those are good movies to pair with this one.
All right.
Okay.
For my
One
double
more.
feature. Oh, okay.
Oh, please.
Fight
What do you
Club.
got? Fight Club.
Fight Club.
Ooh.
Well, one of the things we've mentioned several times in this is he's a mama's boy. He's devoted to, I need to be a protector. I need to do whatever I can, sacrifice whatever I can to protect the things in my life, whether it's the cat or the woman. There's that line in Fight Club, we're a generation of men raised by women. Maybe the last thing we need is another woman. But the film ultimately ends with Ed Norton. He blows, he shoots himself in the mouth. And the first thing he does after he shoots himself in the mouth is he reaches for Helena Bonham Carter and he tries to comfort her. Don't worry about this. The whole face, those buildings blowing down. Don't worry. We're going to be fine. I got my violence out. Everything I needed to destroy, I destroyed, but it's good now. We can go back to life. And so I know Fight Club's a very different movie, but I think that's a good one to pair with this.
I like that. My double feature is Zodiac, and you should check out our Zodiac episode if you haven't. And that's all I have to say about that. So, Don, what are your 67,234 movies?
Well, I had 100, but you guys took 2 of them. So, all right. So, in no particular order: The Fugitive, Clue, because of the games, Prisoners, which I'm still waiting for somebody to request that one. 500 Days of Summer, with the whole idea of obsessive guys. Kiss the Girls with Morgan Freeman and Ashley Judd. Whiplash, Nightcrawler, Silence of the Lambs, Nocturnal Animals, Room, Get Out, What Lies Beneath, which is another underrated horror film. Parasite, Seven, Ex Machina, James's favorite movie of all time, The Girl on the Train. Hereditary.
I wouldn't know. I don't think that's an actual film. I haven't seen it.
Panic Room, The Good Nurse, The Game. Since you mentioned Michael Douglas, I had one of his on here. And last but not least, because I highly recommend you watching this film, because if you like Rosamund Pike, being a completely soulless human being who victimizes others, catch I Care a Lot with her and Peter Dinklage. It's fantastic.
Glad you mentioned The Game. That's a great movie.
That.
People don't talk about that movie enough.
I haven't even thought of that movie in forever.
Oh, it's great.
Well, I mentioned Seven because what we get to see what's in the box. Or sorry, we find out what's in the box, and what's in the box is,
Have you guys done Seven yet?
Nope.
Not yet.
Holy shit.
It's up for grabs.
One day someone will ask for it.
I'm asking now.
Well, there you go.
I'll try not to be sick.
Well, sweet. I think it's okay. Yeah.
I'll try not to do my Morgan Freeman narration voice.
No, I want to hear it. Let's hear it.
Yeah, give it.
No, it'll have to be on the 7 episode.
No, come on. We want to hear it now. We need a teaser to run so that in 3 or 4 months and we do the movie, then people will be prepared. So let's hear it.
James and Michael were sitting at their desks listening to Don doing ridiculous voice.
Oh my God. So there you go. That's your teaser for our episode on 7 in the coming months. I guess that brings it back to you, Mike. This is normally where I would do the where can we find you on social media, but I don't know if you want to do that. You can tell people, or you can tell them to fuck off, whatever you want to do, man.
Fuck off. I'm on Facebook. My name's Michael Stevens. I'm not doing anything. I'm at home playing video games in my robe. My wife is pissed, but I'm not married, and I didn't kill her. But no.
Legitimately, I want to talk about something that you do, because I know a lot of professional writers who don't write as much as you. And I find it crazy that you're not just releasing shit constantly. So if you would humor me, could you tell everybody about your October tradition?
Basically, we get to October, it's Halloween time. Starting on October 1st, pretty much until the end of the month. It used to be October 6th, but I've extended it. Every single day, I'm going to write a horror story. And could be Hollywood themed or Halloween themed or something like that. But it's a horror story. Generally, they're around 13 to 1400 words. And I give myself a time limit. You set the clock, you have an hour, sit down, write. And when I first started, it was you had an hour, sit down, write the story, post it on Facebook immediately. I haven't continued that the last year or two just because Facebook no longer allows you to store your notes so people can access them. But yeah, I mean, that's basically it. It's just 31 days, 31 stories, or about 1,300 words written in about an hour. Most times, to be honest, the idea comes to me like a few minutes before I sit down and write it. It'll be like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, I need a story idea. I'll find something, sit down, immediately write it, and throw it online.
So I just want to throw out that, number one, I find this highly inspiring. I am a writer who writes very slow. I am an overthinker, so I will think through stories for months, years before I sit and write them. And so what you do fascinates the shit out of me. And I tried to do it this past October, and I failed miserably. I think I made 5 days out of the whole month. But overall, I just wanted to say I really feel like that's the kind of thing that our listeners might need to hear, that this is possible. And whether you accomplish 31 days or 5 days or one fucking day, maybe that's more than we're writing now, know? So yeah, go ahead.
Here's the thing. Like, when it comes to writing in general, I'm more like, I guess, how you're describing yourself. I'm like, oh, I have a story idea. And 2 years later, I'm like, well, I still have that story idea. It's hard to stretch that out. But with the October challenge, because it was a challenge, it was a competition, with myself, can you actually do this? There's some pressure on the line. I forced myself, and it worked out. And I'm not going to lie, I think I wrote some pretty damn good stories. But normally, you're a writer, sitting down, looking at that white page, it just sucks. And so you have a story in your mind, you want to write a novel. Novels are even worse because they're going to take you like a month or 2, 3 or 4 to get through. It's a difficult thing. So I think the short form, like a flash fiction format where literally I'm only investing an hour, but you're going to do it every day. It's a perfect way, the way someone might exercise, the way Don's going to go to the gym and work his legs. It's a way to get up there.
No, I really think that you should piece them together and release a book. I think you should.
Definitely should.
I would love that.
Definitely.
I have I have someone working on it right now to, formatting the book, and I just need to find an artist who can sort of provide some visuals.
Nice. All right. I suppose we'll wrap this up. So I want to thank you for being here and for making me watch this movie that I thought was a different movie. And yeah.
I literally had assumed you of all people would have seen this movie and you're like,
yeah,
wow, I never saw this. I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on. Sorry I was a little sick. I know, I'm a little sick.
It didn't show. I mean, at least your microphone didn't cut in and out like me.
Like you care. I'm the one that has to edit it.
My microphone isn't sick, so just let him edit it. So, but I hope to come back sometime soon.
You'll be back.
You have to come back and do 7.
Oh yeah,
and then we'll make 8.
No, but I'm putting that down in paper right now. I am doing 7 on the Necronomicon.
So that wraps it up for another week. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I'm still alive.
Supposedly. And we'll see you next week here at the Necronoma.com. Or at least I will.
Especially since James is going to stay with me for the baby. Okay. Blueberry, lion face, lemon face, lion face, lemon face.